And in this next news story, a man has been found guilty of killing beloved teenager Jamie Meah in a knife attack in Armley. Jamie, who's only 18 years old, was dragged from a taxi, stabbed and killed by a rival drugs gang on the 31st of March 2023. Ranei Wilks, who's 23, has now been found guilty of manslaughter following a trial at Leeds Crown Court. He was also convicted of wounding with intent to cause GBH to Jamie's friend and 2 counts of having an article with a blade or point. Wilks was acquitted of murder and attempted murder after jurors deliberated for 13.5 hours. During the trial, which began on January the 6th, jurors heard how Jamie and his friend had been using a taxi to take them to deal drugs, and when they arrived at one of the streets, they were ambushed and attacked. The prosecutor, Imran Shafi, said during the opening to the court, "The killing arises, we say, out of a dispute between groups dealing drugs in the Leeds area." He said, "We say the defendant was affiliated with one group and the deceased to a rival group. It appears both groups were actively engaged in dealing drugs." On the 31st of March, the deceased and his friend took a taxi to various locations. The final fatal destination was in Hall Lane, and it would appear the 2 of them were engaged in dealing drugs. Said at the streets, his friend got out and began to approach a customer and almost immediately recognized an individual in a Mercedes and ran back to the taxi he felt for good reason. The court heard 3 men exited the Mercedes, and at least one of them, we say the defendant, was armed with a weapon. An eyewitness described Mr. Wilks as holding a machete. The prosecution then went on to say this blade was different to the possession of a zombie knife when they had previously caught him back in the summer. The prosecutor said Jamie Meah and his friend were dragged out of the taxi and subjected to a vicious, sustained, barbaric and brutal assault. Both men were seriously injured, Jamie Meah fatally. Shortly after, he died from his injuries. The court was told that Jamie did manage to flee, as did his friend who sought help in a nearby fish and chip shop. It was said that Jamie was seen by a woman soon after and he told her he needed an ambulance, but when she returned he had gone. She later spotted blood and found him slumped against a fence. The prosecutor said a post-mortem examination carried out after his death found Jamie had suffered a wound to his right hip, one to the right thigh which had severed an artery and caused a catastrophic hemorrhage that led to his death, a stab wound to his calf, a cut to his lower leg and a small abrasion to his neck. The court heard Wilks, alongside Aquaid Jeffers, Caleb Ewi and Enam Nishat, fled the country following the attack, and the 3 men are still at large. During the trial, the taxi driver on the journey with Jamie and his friend gave evidence and said he knew it was going to be a bad day when he saw a man get out of the car with a sword before the stabbing. During his evidence, the taxi driver told the court he heard one of the passengers say, "Don't stab me, don't stab me." He said they got the other man, his passenger, but did not see what happened to him. The driver then told jurors that the BMW's driver then reversed, allowing him to leave the scene. He told the prosecutor, "It was a very bad time when I saw the man with the machete, and then I saw him get in my car, and I thought, it's not good. It's going to be a very, very bad day. I had a bad feeling. It wasn't nice what I was witnessing." He said, "I thought there was going to be a very big fight," and that's exactly what happened. So it's believed that the defendant, Mr. Wilks, is going to be sentenced in February, and as I said, the other 3 are still at large. At Manchester Crown Court the other day, 3 men received custodial sentences totaling over 29 years for their involvement in a shooting in Little Hulton in May 2024. On Sunday the 26th of May 2024, a targeted attack took place at a property in Little Hulton at around 9:30 in the night. This attack resulted in a 20-year-old man being shot in the chest and receiving life-threatening injuries. The victim was fortunate to survive his injuries after receiving hospital treatment. Greater Manchester Police's Challenger team in Salford quickly launched an investigation which resulted in all 3 men being found guilty with wounding with intent. Detectives focused on CCTV from the scene of the shooting, which enabled them to trace the movements of 3 men to key locations, which included disposing of a vehicle used in the attack by setting it alight in attempts to remove evidence. They also traced all three men to an address which was used to coordinate their crimes. Detectives also found evidence of false registration plates being obtained to try and conceal their tracks from CCTV trawls. On Friday, the 28th of June, after a warrant at an address in Farnworth, the firearm used to injure the victim was also recovered from the address. Hundreds of hours of CCTV footage was gathered and viewed to meticulously piece together a thorough timeline of the three men's movement, which alongside extensive phone analysis allowed detectives in the challenging team to present compelling evidence to court. That's evidence that the attack was targeted, organised and premeditated. James Gregory from Salford was jailed for 8 years and 4 months for wounding with intent and additionally pleading guilty to possession of a machete and being concerned in the supply of Class B drugs. Tyler Harrison from Swinton received an 8-year sentence after being found guilty of wounding with intent, and he additionally pleaded guilty to supplying Class A and B, money laundering and possession with intent to supply both Class A and B drugs, all which came to light during the investigation into the shooting. The final man to be sentenced was Jacob Humphreys from Tidley, and he was jailed for 12 years for wounding with intent. Detective Inspector Rebecca McGuigan of the Challenger Organised Crime and District Intelligence Unit said, "We are extremely grateful to everyone who worked so hard on this case. It was complex and fast-moving, but we were able to quickly identify those responsible for the shooting and bring them to justice." He said, "We are also pleased to say that the victim has since made a full recovery. As well as securing custodial sentences for the men involved, we take our duty of care to the wider community very serious and have worked hard with our trusted partners to secure a full closure order at the scene of the shooting in December 2024. He said, "Our main priority in our Challenger team in Salford is to tackle serious and organised crime and antisocial behaviour in Little Hulton. We proactively pursue, protect and prevent crime to bring organised criminals who are intent on blighting our community to justice." So the local community may have noticed an enhanced police presence in the area of Little Hulton, and this will continue whilst we focus on driving down the harm caused by incidents of this nature. And in another story today, as we've all heard, Axel Rudakabana has been jailed for life to serve a minimum of 52 years for the murder of 3 girls in Southport on the 29th of July 2024. The attempted murder of 10 others, which were 8 children and 2 adults, and for possession of a knife in a public place. Rudakabana pleaded guilty to all 16 charges against him and was sentenced at Leeds Crown Court. He was convicted of the murder of Alice Da Silva Aguirre, who was 9 years old, Bebe King, who was 6, and Elsie Stankham, who was 7. He was also additionally convicted of 10 charges of attempted murder of 8 children and 2 children, and 1 charge of possession of a knife. As I said, he's been given 13 life sentences and will serve a minimum of 52 years in prison for the offences. On the morning of the 29th of July last year, Rudakabana booked a taxi to the Heart Space where 26 children were attending a Taylor Swift-themed yoga and dance workshop. He was carrying a knife bought online days earlier, and after leaving the taxi without paying, he entered the building and carried out the appalling attack. Just want to say, rest in peace to the victims. My condolences go out to your family.